Hi everyone, welcome back to the Life's Good, and this is the pub under the stairs. My name is AJ, I live in the northeast of England, and this is my channel. Well, I predominantly make my home brew using beer kits, and I have been using the single tin type kits, and I've shown you several times how I go about using those kits to make beer and keg beer and have beer in my little pub under the stairs. And I did say that I was going to acquire something a bit fancier, if you like to call it that, and a bit more robust and so on. And I've purchased this Young's homebrew American IPA or India Pale Ale kit. This kit will make 40 pints of quality ale. They claim it to be about 6.5% ABV and will be ready from beginning to end. It takes about, I would say, 5 to 6 weeks, and this will be ready for drinking. Maybe a bit sooner, depending on how things go. We'll see what happens, but certainly a week to 15 days in the bucket, and then a week to 15 days in the keg. So you're probably looking at least 4 weeks, nearly 5 weeks, before this will be ready to pour from the keg and drink. So we'll whiz over into the corner of the kitchen where I've got things set up, and I will show you what's in the kit and how to start it off and put everything together stage by stage as one video at the end, and post it on YouTube for you guys to follow in order to make your beer at home. I've taken everything out of the box so you can see the contents. I'll quickly go through all of these for you. You get a little leaflet straight away, which is an instruction leaflet on everything from preparing your equipment, setting up your beer, and ultimately kegging it, adding the hops, descriptions of different hop styles and types of beer and the types of hop styles, as well as specific gravities expected on some of these beers, and some other hints and tips on storing, maturing, and serving your ales. So a great little leaflet there that will be of help to everybody. You get your basic brewing mixture. There's 3 kilograms here, a large pouch, quite heavy pouch of the mix. This contains the malt, hops and barley all blended, ready to use. You get a 1 kilogram bag of brewing and winemaking sugar. Very important to use this as opposed to ordinary household granulated sugar. The brewing sugar, it creates a much better result and much better fermentation and a much nicer taste. This will not sweeten your beer like a household sugar will. There's priming sugar here as well. This is for when you put it in the keg. They give you the 85 grams or 3 ounces of priming sugar. A sachet of hop pellets, which will be added to the mixture a couple of days before putting it in the keg. You add this a few days just to give it that extra hoppy flavour. And also your yeast, which is a 20 gram sachet of beer yeast. It's a slightly larger sachet than you would get with the small 1 tin type kits. You get a bigger mix, a bigger sachet of yeast, and of course the addition of the hop pellets as well in this kit. So a little bit more fancy than your basic kit. And for the purpose of day 1, which it is today, all I'll be needing is the basic beer mix, the sugar and the yeast. And I'll be putting these together in a bucket, setting this away, and I'll show you quickly how I go about doing that. In order to make your beer, you're going to need some basic equipment. You're going to need a very large bucket with a lid, and this particular one has a little hole in the lid in order to attach the bubbler valve, which you're going to need. I always use one of these when I'm brewing. It fits in the top, a little bit of water in there. It stops the air going in, but allows the gases to be emitted. And you're going to need a large spoon. This white nylon plastic spoon is ideal. It reaches through to the bottom of the bucket and is ideal for stirring the mixture as you add it to the bucket. So let's make a start. The first thing you need to do is to take your beer mix in the large pouch and place it in a sink of warm water for about 10 minutes or so in order to soften it and make it easier to pour. And you also need to boil a kettle of water. I've just taken the pouch out of the warm water. It's been in there about 12 minutes now and it's quite soft. And I'm just going to cut the top off with a pair of scissors. Straight across. We can discard that. And as you open this, you get that first aroma of the beer mix. It smells absolutely gorgeous. And we're going to tip this into our brew bucket. This should pour quite well now that it's been softened. As I said, the bucket's been sterilised and thoroughly rinsed with cold water, as has the spoon and the bubbler. Now you need to get every last drop of this into this bucket, but a lot of it will stick to the sides of the pouch, so if you can, try and twist the pouch and lift it back to the worktop. And I'm going to add some boiling water to this pouch to dissolve the last of this sticky mixture and also pour that into the bucket. Please be very careful when doing this. The kettle of boiling water is extremely hot. Steady your pouch and add some boiling water to it. It will hold quite a lot if you want to. In fact, it looks like it will probably take most of this kettle. And you can give that a stir with your sterilised spoon to get all of that lovely sticky mixture dissolved into the hot water. Remember, this is going to be hot, so you might want to use a towel or a tea towel or some oven gloves when lifting this to pour into your bucket. You will now need to start stirring this together and dissolving all of the mixture in the boiling water. And I would recommend adding another kettle of boiling water before adding your sugar. So that's the beer mix and 2 kettlefuls of boiling water, and I've given it a really good stir, and I'm now going to add the 1 kilo of brewing sugar. And once again, give it a really good stir to make sure that everything is dissolved and liquid with no lumps, and that the mix is also dissolved. And the stirring also helps to oxygenate or aerate the liquid. So a thorough stir, and now we can top the bucket up with cold water to the 23 litre level, or 40 pints, if that's the measurement that you're using. And that's now topped up to 23 litres with cold water. And the last part of this initial preparation is to add the yeast. And I just sprinkle the yeast over the top of the beer nice and evenly. Just as simple as that. And that will begin to work with the sugar and the mixture and start to ferment over the next couple of days. And that's it for day one. We just need to put the lid on. And add our bubbler that's about half full of water. And this you need to pop somewhere that's a fairly ambient room temperature. So somewhere around about the 18 to 20 degrees centigrade is ideal. So I suppose that's in the late 60s in Fahrenheit, something of that nature, 68, 70 Fahrenheit. Not sure of the exact conversion. But around about the 18 Celsius is a great temperature. The cooler it is, the longer the fermentation takes. It's as simple as that. If it's warmer, then the yeast can be more active and works that little bit quicker. So I will now place this on the floor in the pub under the stairs and keep an eye on the fermentation by checking the bubbles flowing through my valve. And this will sit there for about a week to 10 days. It's day 9 of the initial fermentation process within the bucket, and a quick look at the bubbler valve on the top, and you will see that the water is absolutely level in both sides of the valve. There's no more CO2 being forced up through and pushing the water around and bubbling through and escaping through the top of the valve. That tells me that the fermentation process, or the initial fermentation, has all but finished. And it's now time for me to add the hop pellets. Now, they look like this. They're a sort of a greeny yellow pellet. If you have a pet rabbit or a guinea pig at home, sometimes you can buy food that's pelletized and looks very similar to this in shape and so on. Although the aroma of this is somewhat different. This smells absolutely gorgeous. And it's now time for me to add these to the bucket. Now this process is actually referred to as dry hopping, and it's commonly used in craft brewing to achieve a highly aromatic or a very hoppy beer style. And you want to be adding these probably about 2 to 3 days before you intend to siphon the beer into your keg or indeed your bottles. And it's quite a simple process, and I'll show you now what I do to add these to this bucket. Well, obviously the first thing I need to do is to remove the lid, and you can see inside that the beer has all but finished frothing and bubbling. And I'm just going to sprinkle all of these hops. There's 100 grams of hop pellets in this packet, and it's just a case of sprinkling those into the beer. Now, when you do this, you're probably going to start disturbing a few things, and you will get an element of frothing and bubbling take place sometimes. It just, the movement of the hops going down through the beer sometimes releases a bit more CO2 from the mixture. Now it's as simple as that. I don't stir it or mess around with it. I just sprinkle those on the top. They will absorb the moisture from the beer and start to add a hoppy flavour. Now if you look at the back there, I'm not sure if you can see this very well, but that has already started bubbling there now. It's the hops absorbing the beer and disturbing the beer and releasing a bit of CO2 from this liquid. It's not a fermentation, it is just the hops reacting with the beer and absorbing the beer and releasing their flavours into the beer, and that activity is disturbing a bit of CO2 that's already present within the beer mix. So I will now leave that for about 2 to 3 days, and then I will consider siphoning that into my keg. Well, it's day 14 and the hops have been sitting in that beer for around about the 3 to 4 days now, nearly 5 days in fact. And it's now time to siphon the beer from the bucket into the keg, for which you will need your siphon hose, your siphon wand with sediment trap. I've got the little clip which goes on the side of the bucket to hold everything in place. And with this particular kit, you will definitely need the little siphon sock, which is like a gauze type material that ties on the bottom of the siphon wand and stops all the little bits of crud that are in this mixture getting into the keg. Now the hops leave a lot of bits and pieces and sediment and so on in the beer. There's quite a bit of yeast sediment in this particular kit as well. If you remember, I showed you it's actually got a lot more ingredients compared to the 1 tin kit that I ordinarily would be using. So siphon kit with the sock. And talking of ingredients, the priming sugar that comes with this kit, I said earlier that it was 3 ounces or 85 grams. I've actually weighed this morning, and they give you 145 grams of priming sugar with this kit, which equates to, I believe, about 5 ounces on the imperial side of things. So you actually get more priming sugar as well. So the entire kit consists of a lot more ingredients to make up this India Pale Ale. So, without further ado, I'm going to siphon my beer from the bucket into the keg, and I'll quickly show you on the surface what this looks like after the hops have been sitting in there for a few days. I'll just lift the lid from this bucket and you can see that the hops have actually been absorbed by the beer. There is a sort of a yellowy green residue, if you like to call it that, sitting on the surface. It's all this that you do not want decanted into your keg, which is why we use the siphon sock. So I'm going to now insert my siphon wand with the sock into this bucket and siphon this into my keg. And of course I will be priming the keg with the 145 grams, as I found out this morning. I'll be priming the keg with that and siphoning the beer and mixing the sugar with the beer into the keg. So, priming sugar into the keg. As I said, that's 145 grams or 5 ounces with this kit, not 3 ounces as I previously stated. And the siphon wand with sock attached, and of course the hose. I'm now just going to push that down into the beer, right to the bottom, and push the hose against this clip like that, and that's held in place nicely. And the other end of the hose goes into the keg. I will suck on the end of that and the beer should flow into the keg. Well, of course, it's at this point that you might get a cheeky taste of the beer as you siphon it from the bucket into the keg. You have to suck on the end of the tube and allow the beer to flow into the keg, and it will keep flowing until it's all decanted into here. So let's start this off. And that does actually taste really nice, even though it hasn't conditioned in the keg. That's got a wonderful flavour. Slightly citrusy. That will be the hops And as I siphon, I tried to make sure that the sugar that we've added to the keg, the priming sugar, is actually dissolved into the beer, absorbed by the beer, and the remaining yeast in the mixture will start to consume that sugar and create a bit more alcohol and also more CO2. But because the lid is on the keg, the CO2 cannot escape and is forced into the beer, and that is what carbonates your beer. So when you do eventually decant it into a glass, the CO2 that has been forced into the beer in the keg tries to escape, and that is what causes your beer to bubble and froth. So I'm going to let this continue siphoning until all of the beer is in the keg. All of the beer is now in the keg, and as you can see, there's quite a lot of sediment and gunk in the bottom of this bucket. You didn't want any of that making its way into your keg and spoiling your beer. So this is why you use that siphon sock, which is on the bottom of the wand there. So this now can be washed and cleansed and sterilized, ready for my next beer kit. Well, that's it. The beer's in the keg. I've got the cap spanner, which I've just used to secure the lid tightly on top of this keg. And this I will now stand in the pub under the stairs and allow that to go through secondary fermentation and condition for 7 to 10 days, I would imagine. That should be just about ready for sampling. So I'll pop that in the pub and have to be very, very patient while this now does its thing. Well, that's about it. The beer's in the keg's in the pub. All I have to do now is label it. There is a little cutout label on the top of the box. I've attached that to this string label, and I'm just going to hang that off my valve there and leave that in place for a week to 10 days, during which time I might draw a bit off just to check and see how things are going. But that is the Young's American India Pale Ale in a keg. Excellent. Well, thanks for watching. It's been nice having you around. I appreciate you staying with me. It's a lengthy video, I know, but I've covered what I think is all aspects of making this kit. So let me know if you make the kit and how you get on. And if you've not been here before, please hit the subscribe button in the corner there. Give us a thumbs up and tell your friends about us as well. And please, please, please come back and see us again soon. We're going to be in the pub, or we could be in the garden or the greenhouse or in the kitchen making chutney. You never know what we're going to be up to. So look after yourselves. You come back and see us again. You be safe, you be happy. And we'll see you again soon in the Life's Good, in the pub under the stairs. Bye bye now.